Well, hello. Welcome to Business by Nature Live. I'm Natalie Kent, creator of Sacred Business. And today I have the lovely Tomar Levine with me. And we're going to be having a coffee table chat about how your creator type can help you grow your business. So these live shows are all about how to create in harmony with nature, using nature as our guide, as our teacher, about how to create in a more natural, harmonious way that doesn't stress us out and create unnecessary harm to our bodies and our lives in general. So it's very much a flow approach to creating money, generating money, circulating money through your business, through your life, and using nature to show us how it's done. So that's what these shows are about. And today, this is kind of a first for this series where I've got someone with me, which is exciting. So I want to do more of this. We'll be doing more sort of informal interviews and chats with other members of this group and people outside of this group who have something valuable to share. So today, Tomar Levine, who is a dear friend and colleague of mine and a collaborator as well, she's a channeler and she's a career guide to spiritual entrepreneurs, and she also happens to be a book angel, which means she can just wave her magic wand and turn your book into a magical product and offering to this world. So she's done wonders for collating my crazy amount of content into a form that is actually of use to people, has an impact on people. So that is her magical power. So Tomar actually, as part of this process, has been asking me a lot of questions about the creator types, which is the basis of my upcoming book, The 12 Creator Types. And I just thought, well, rather than just ask these questions in private, let's do it live so everyone can get an insight into what on earth this is all about. What do these creator types really have to do with how I grow my business? So I'm going to leave it to you, Tomar.
Okay,
now you can quiz away.
Okay. So Natalie, you are a dear friend and also someone I immensely admire. You're one of the most original and creative thinkers I have personally encountered. And the creator types is just one of the many things your brain generates or your soul brings through. But the creator types really is an original contribution. And it so blows my mind that you're able to do this. So my first question, the thing I've been really wanting to understand is, how do you develop these systems? You seem to be a system generator. That is your part of your great genius, is your ability to synthesize systems of knowledge in very elegant, complex, and beautiful ways. But not only that, they are unusual systems. They're things no one has ever heard of or thought about before. So where does this come from? If that's not putting you too much on the spot.
Where does it come from? Well, not from me, that's for sure.
What's the process by which the idea germinates, the light bulb comes on, and then from there, one thing after another kind of trickles through, and I'm just imagining what it must be like.
Well, I've got to say it's very much what I teach, which is the balance of structure and flow. And what I mean by that is the structure, the masculine aspect of being able to analyze information, gather information, and kind of use information to guide our intuition and guide our creative flow. That's kind of how this process these creator types came about. Because over 10 years ago now, I did my diploma in psychosomatic therapy, which is all based on the mind-body connection and how our internal emotional patterns and mental patterns manifest in a physical form, in the shape of the structure of our bodies. And so when I studied this 10 years ago, it kind of gave me a framework to see people through, like a lens. So I started seeing bodies and how people operated according to this framework of what different body parts mean, how energy flows through the body and why it flows that particular way. how it manifests in their nature, how they do things. And I've always been an observer of people anyway, since I was very, very young. I was into profiling systems from high school. And so I guess my brain was already wired to see patterns and group people as types, if you like, group certain behaviors. And so once I had this framework of psychosomatics to work within, I started seeing all these patterns over the years, and really over 10 years. And then probably only in the last couple of years did it all start to crystallize, and I went, wow, these patterns I'm seeing in people are the same patterns that exist in nature, in different nature states. And so I started to see this alignment between how bodies were built, they're all built for a purpose, and how different states of nature operate, which is why they're all based on, you know, river and snow and lake, etc. So that was a very big part of it, the structure and the flow. Like my creative flow, really it all came together as a major insight, or a download, if you like, where I just went, wow, here are the types. I laid them all out at once and drew all these diagrams of how energy moves through the body. So that kind of gives a little snapshot of how it came to me. It was a much longer process than it appears. Yeah.
So when you describe that download and seeing these types all at once, was it the correlation between the body type and the natural phenomenon that came together, or was it because it could have been all three, the way the body type and the expression through action came together? Was because that seems to be the emphasis in your system.
Yeah. Well, there is another piece that might answer your question. So when I started doing business coaching with people, and particularly working with people at the conception of their business, like really, I used to run a program called the Soul Business Blueprint, which was about tuning into a person's soul and seeing what exactly in this reality they could create from their soul gifts. Like, what was their soul trying to get them to manifest or to express, and how could that realistically happen? And so I went through this process with so many people and started to notice patterns of behavior. I started to notice that some people would execute their blueprint quite naturally, quite easily, and then others would stall. And I started to reflect on, okay, is there something I'm not doing as a business coach to help these people actually execute what they were so inspired by, you know, when they had that original vision and intention of, this is my soul's blueprint, this is the business I want to create. And then I realized that I was seeing every person the same, that they should create in the same way. So I wasn't able to facilitate different ways of creating for each person. I was just like, right, you write a plan and you execute it. But that doesn't work for everyone. It only works for certain people, certain types. There are so many other ways I've discovered of creating. And so, you know, as an example, some people create by bringing other people together in groups. Like, that's their way of creating. They're much more people-oriented than planning-oriented. Whereas other types love the plan and they can execute no trouble. And I saw those people just go, because that's generally how we're taught to create in business. You write a plan, you execute it.
What about people who love to plan but don't love to execute?
Well, they might love to plan, but it may not be their natural creation style. That's the thing. So, you know, there's different versions of planning as well. You know, some people still like plans or planning, but they're not planning in the way that really caters to their natural strengths. So it's very much about understanding yourself and how you are wired to bring something into being. It's unique to you. It's how you do it. You can't be told to do it the same way as everyone else. It won't work. It will be hard. It can work, But it'll be hard. You have to apply force, and I wasn't interested in
So
that.
seeing those differences was one of the insights that there are different styles of,
Yeah,
optimal, and this of course doesn't take into account the fact that not everyone is working optimally, and people have all kinds of barriers and resistances and fears and blockages and so forth.
yeah,
You're talking
that's
about optimally. If someone is working optimally, they still have different ways that they're designed to take something to fulfillment. It's
yes,
not
and
it's not a cookie cutter, not one size fits all.
absolutely not. And this is the thing: is that when people know their style, they know when they're out of flow. They know when they're in flow versus out of flow, and that is key. It's a key form of mastery in business. If you ask
Yeah.
me, create a holistic business that isn't harmful. So a lot of people are creating businesses with side effects. So they lose money, they waste time, they harm their bodies in the process, they get highly stressed, they take all sorts of diversions, twists and turns to get to their goal. They create a lot of drama on the side. That's what I call business with side effects. And so that's what the creator types are really designed to do. It's like, being in flow means minimal side effects. So minimal diversions, detours, drama, straight to your goal via your style of creating.
Got it. So what is exactly, the thing that has really fascinated me, one of the things, is the fact that your system depends on the body itself, because I'm familiar with many, many profiling systems, and almost none of them really address the body or the physical structure of the body. They might talk about energy usage or, other things like that. But mostly it's more of a mental, psychological, emotional, um, indicators.
Yep.
So why is the body the determinant of your creation style?
Such a good question. And I'd like to just say hello to Leonie, who's joined us, who calls herself a paternologist. So we're definitely akin in that way, Leonie. Jillian's here. Hi, Jill and Jody. Awesome. Glad you're here with us. Please ask any questions, even though Toma is a professional question asker. She does this for a living and she's exceptional at it. So I doubt she'll leave anything out, but if she does, please ask. Jill's saying, so true, Toma. It is where all those things live. Yes, in the body. Is that what you mean, Jill? I think so.
I think that's what she means.
So why is the body the determinant? Well,
In
first
other words, those things I mentioned, like the mind, the feelings, the energy, that they all reside in the body. Very, very powerful insight. Thank you, Jill.
And Jill is also trained in psychosomatics, as is Jody. And I'm sure, Leonie, you have your own version of, mind-body connection work that you have in your line of healing. So the body is the vehicle for the soul. Most of us can kind of get that concept. So if you're driving a car, you want to know the car. You want to know the make and model of the car. Yes, it's designed to go from A to B, but the way it gets there is going to be slightly different. It looks different. It has a slightly different way of functioning. So we are all the same. We look the same. We have 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head and a torso.
For the most part. Some of us have 2 heads.
Right, that's right. We hope that we have all of our limbs. And if we don't, that's okay too. We can work with that. So each body is slightly different. There are nuances and different shapes in the bone structure that determine the flow of energy. So like I said before, I needed a framework, a structure to work within so my creative energy could flow through me, a lens, if you like. So the body is constantly channeling energy in a particular direction or pattern and speed and intensity.
Uh-huh.
So those 3 things, speed, pattern, or direction of energy flow, and intensity, are the key things that define your body as different to someone else's. Your bone structure, distribution of your body tissue, your muscles and your fat tissue, determine how that energy moves through you. So it's your soul energy being expressed in a physical form. And so you, as a human body, we are all mirrors of nature. Nature operates in the same ways. We see parallels all the time. They are principles of energy flow. So a lava, for one, lava is a huge buildup of energy under the ground and comes up to this kind of bottleneck at the top and occasionally explodes. You know, that force of energy thrust coming upwards is something that some body types have naturally in them, whereas others don't. And you'll see that bottleneck in the body. You'll see that shape. It's defined by an hourglass shape.
Does that mean that I'm sorry? Does that mean that the energy is literally coming up from the bottom, out the top? And is the direction of energy different in different body types?
Absolutely, yeah. So all of the creator types, so there's 12 creator types, they all have a different direction of energy flow. So the lava, for one, has this point of resistance. So the energy is thrusting upwards, but then because of the bottleneck, it's pushing down. So there's this friction that happens in a lava type body. Whereas there are other types, like the whirlwind type, that operate more like a spiral. And you'll see these people who seem to operate like they're going around in circles. But if they're in flow, they're extremely good manifestors. So they whip up a storm with whatever they set their intention to. Extremely amazing at doing that.
And with lightning, for instance, is the energy coming from above down rather than from the bottom up?
Yep, good example. So straight down with the lightning type. And then there are other types that are more static. So the lake type, for one, is kind of more of a centralized energy that radiates outwards, like a ripple effect.
Would the sun be the same?
The sun is the same, so it's fixed in one position and it radiates outwards.
So it's radiant rather than fluid or directional. Wow. Well, that's quite beautiful. So, and I can really relate to that in my body as sort of, as just how the different experiences of energy feel in the body. Yeah. So okay, so you pretty much convinced me about the body being the determinant, not just of the different creator types, but of actually how we use our energy in the world, right? How we express what's inside of us and get it out into the world. That is creation, right?
Yes.
Getting the energy from the inside out.
Yes, that's right. And that was actually the premise of, how these creator types really came about. What was such a deep, long challenge for me was actually how to use my own creative power in a productive way instead of a destructive way. And this, so many people in this world are using their power, their energy, their life force energy to destroy themselves, and in the process destroy the world around them, the people, and our planet. And so when you don't know how to use your power, the energy you have available to you, when you don't know how to use it, it will undermine you by default. It must be channeled for productive use. So that's what these creator types teach us. For you, in this body, this is how you direct that flow of energy. This is how you know when you're going against your flow and when it's undermining you. These are the hallmarks. These are the signals to look for.
Well, that is very important. Yeah.
Yeah. And in business, of course, business is just a creation. So many people are going against their natural flow to grow a business. That's not how nature creates.
Because they're following somebody else's teaching, a one-size-fits-all template of how you're supposed to do it. Yes.
And on top of that, they're also being driven by the mind. So they're overriding their bodies. They're disconnecting their bodies, and they let their mind dictate how I'm going to grow this business. It's coming from control. This is how it grow. This is how it's going to be. No awareness of the body, therefore not aware of the body of their business, which is a living, breathing life force too. Jody has a question. So does that mean my lake ripples can turn inward on myself and cause the emotional flood? Absolutely. So the thing with a lake type is the energy will become too concentrated at the center and it becomes boggy, too watery, not enough movement, becomes heavy in the center, starts to flood at the edges, and the emotional energy bleeds outwards into other lakes, other people, getting blurred boundaries with other projects and things that are going on in your life. And that's the disaster state, actually, of the lake. So all of the natural states, all of the types have a disaster state, which is, I should say, still important. Nature uses natural disasters to clear the past, to start with a clean slate. Sometimes it is necessary. But the catch is we don't want to be going into disaster state without awareness and just by default, which is how I was operating before I learnt all of this stuff. I was in, by default, disaster state most of the time. And so when I had to create something, I had to use extra force to override that all the time.
And that, that expression being in flow, like what you just said about the lake, sounds like when the lake isn't flowing, when it's not moving, when there isn't a natural, no matter what the direction and style of energy, the energy still has to flow, right?
Yeah, bingo. Yep.
Otherwise it becomes stagnant or it becomes whatever, destructive in some way or other, but it's not alive, and we all have experienced that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think. Some people become more stagnant and implode or kind of sink into themselves or become withdrawn. Other people become more frenetic and explode, go outward in destructive ways. So there's different different manifestations of wasted energy or not flowing.
Yes,
right?
So that's a good point. Imploding or exploding, that's a simple way of describing it, and you'll pretty easily know what your way is, explode or implode.
Exactly. So this kind of brings in one of the most central elements of the creator types, which is the way they interweave with natural cycles, with natural essences, with the whole creation cycle, what you're teaching here with the natural cycles and how you have described the creator types as part of a natural cycle and also partaking of the different elements. And, there's so many different aspects you use the metaphors of nature. So could you say more about that?
Yeah. Well, the creator types all align with particular stages of the growth cycle. So your creator type is naturally attuned to operate at a particular stage of the growth cycle. And that is important because you know immediately what your natural strength is and where you sit in that cycle. So you can not only master what you do well, you can also call in the people who specialize in other stages. So other creative types that can come, and help you in areas that you don't really naturally operate well in, which is true for all of us. We try to do everything in business, and it's good to have a handle on all the different functions of business so we know what people to call in when we need them. But we don't have to perform all of those functions all the time ourselves. So this is very much about co-creation too. And particularly something that you mentioned, Tomar, the other day was the difference between creativity and creation, where, people might think, well, the creator types are just about being creative. Well, it's more than that, because being creative is just one aspect of the growth cycle. So if you know the growth cycle of the tree, the seed stage is a truly creative stage where you're scattering lots of seeds and experimenting and seeing what works and coming up with ideas. That's the primary stage for creativity. But then there's 3 other stages that are involved in creation. So you can have a lot of creativity, but not necessarily completing that creation cycle. Like we talked about the other day, you can write a book, and that's creativity. But if you don't publish it, it's not creation yet, because it's not truly having an impact on
Right.
people.
So you said there are 3 other stages after creation. So I have to ask you, what are they?
Yeah. So the other stages are roots, which is where, you're creating a stable foundation of your business, of any creation. There's leaves, which is about reach, so branching out in all directions, reaching for new opportunities. And then finally, fruit. Fruit is where, we enjoy the fruits of our efforts. Generally the money period, where we're starting to see money on the tree, it naturally grows because of all the effort we've put into the other stages.
Right. So this is particularly appropriate if we're talking about a business.
Yes.
And perhaps you might rephrase it slightly if it's not a business necessarily, but there's still an impact on the world where money might not be the result, but something else might be the result or the fulfillment.
Impact.
Right.
So the fruit on the tree is the fruits, whatever the outcome is of all the energy you've invested in that whole cycle.
Right. So, yes, and I brought up the idea of, I used to be an artist and I created a lot of paintings, but if I didn't exhibit them, they were just sitting around my apartment. I didn't exhibit them, nobody saw them. And regardless of whether people bought them or not, that was yet a further completion. But just really exposing, taking this vision and bringing it out so that other people could receive it. So it's like giving, and then who's going to receive it? This giving is the receiving. So that has to be, both parts have to be there and that's true of the life. That's it's certainly the whole. The idea of a seed that sprouts, and then the sprout. Many seeds don't sprout, and many sprouts don't thrive, and out of thousands of seeds, maybe a few actually become trees or flowering plants. So there's no guarantee that just because you give birth to an idea that it's going to really be a complete creation in the world. Right?
That's right. Yeah, and I love that, because people can get stuck in one stage. So they can get stuck in creativity mode, but they're not actually having an impact with what they're creating. And so, and they're wondering, why isn't the money flowing? Or, why isn't my business growing? Well, have you gone through all those stages of growth so that you can have that intended impact with your creativity?
Yeah, and that's very common with people who are creative, expressors, for instance, that their strength may be in the creative side, but they really don't have the patience or the aptitude to do marketing.
Yes.
To do networking, to do promotion, to do, selling. And they shy away from it. It doesn't work for them. It's not, they don't love to do it. They just go back into the studio and create more and create more and create more, hoping that someone else may come along, or just miraculously something will happen, without them having to get out there. And again, like you said, if you can find someone to complement you in the gifts that aren't your strengths, that's the ideal. But again, it has to be a fit, because a lot of people can hire someone to do something for them. It doesn't work because they're not aligned.
That's right. And there are so many people in business who are actually going against their natural flow. So they're not creating a business that is in alignment with their creation style. So if you've got, one person in their creation style and they're trying to hire someone who's running a business that may even be successful, but it's not their natural creation style, there's always going to be friction.
Yeah. Well, it's like so many of the people who teach how to create a business are teaching from a certain style, and the people who study with them are really coming from a different style. And try though they might, they could often spend a lot of money and tie themselves into knots trying to follow the formula, but it will never work no matter how many guarantees that teacher makes. You have to do it this way. This is guaranteed for success. And this person fails, flops, falls on their face, because that's not for them. That's not their alignment. So a lot of people just don't know this.
I've seen it so many times. Yeah, and that's why I'm so passionate about this, is creating that alignment with who you really are, what the purpose you were built for.
Yeah.
Jody has a question. So the lake ripples need to continue rippling outwards to my community rather than stop or turn in. Yes. So that's pretty accurate, Jody. So you, as a lake type, you don't want to get too concentrated in the center and bogged down in your own emotional world. That's the key with a lake. Do not get bogged down in your own emotional world. When you are constantly rippling outwards and connecting emotionally with others, you keep that emotional energy within you moving. So the water types are naturally quite very emotional. So they need to know how to direct that emotional energy in order to be productive, not destructive. That's a good example. Leonie's saying expansive, not expensive. I think that refers to the side effect comment, Leonie. That's a good way of putting it. Gillian Madigan, how could it bounce off the edges and come back twice fold for a lake? Oh, that's an interesting concept, Jill. So when the ripples come out to the edge, do they come back in again? That's a great depiction, actually, because that's exactly what happens. So what you put out there into your community, you get back in other forms. Cool. All right. Any other questions while we keep going?
You know, I have a question. Does anyone else have one? You know, something you just said about the lakes and the water types, of course, being related to emotions. So their tendency would be to get more bogged down in their emotional life and their feelings, like sort of drown in their emotions rather than keep the flow of connecting to their audience, you know. So that made me think, well, okay, so then there's, you know, the air types, which would be mental. There's the earth types, which would be physical. Mm-hmm. And then there's the fire types, which I don't know how you characterize that, whether it's spiritual or just have to do with intensity. But in other words, does their detriment or their downside tend to be, like, for instance, air types? So they tend to get more detached or more like trying to control from the mind?
Yes, absolutely. So they can get disconnected from emotion.
Trying to figure it all out, perhaps?
To figure it all out and forgetting to make the connection between mind and heart, like to who they're serving and, you know, what real impact they want to have is. They can recycle thoughts and get completely scatterbrained and with energy there. Yep. And fire types.
Yeah.
Fire types tend to get angry.
Oh.
Yeah. Fire energy, if it's not channeled, becomes anger and rage and creates all sorts of health problems, which is why in all of my 20s and my teens, I had a myriad of health problems because my fire was seriously repressed. And so not until I actually learned how to channel that energy did that really start to shift. Yep. So that's the fire types. Or they will burn out because they'll just
burn out. Yep.
Going.
I could see like an excess of energy rather than it's like you have to apportion your energy. You have to manage your energy. You can't like discharge it all at once. Then you have nothing left and you have to recharge and so forth. And I imagine that the earth types would probably fall more into passivity or procrastination or inaction. Would you say?
Yeah, they get stubborn.
Yeah.
The earth types they go rigid and they move.
Right. Inflexibility.
You'll see the rigidity in their bodies. Like, so we've got the mountain type, the soil type, and the tree. So the tree will get naturally rigid, particularly in the spine. They often will have back problems from being pulled off center trying to support other people with their long branches. And mountain types will get, you can see the rigidity in their legs and their body. So that sometimes they'll have quite agile legs, but they won't be flexible. And soil types just tend to get heavy. So they get too heavy and they move in more like a slothful manner.
Yeah.
So that's how it manifests generally for earth types.
All right. So some of these manifestations are more physical or more emotional. I'm hearing an echo now.
They're so intertwined.
But they all translate into action, like either not taking action at all or not taking coherent, fluid, flowing, sequential action, not taking the right kind of action for you or effective action, I could just see so many different issues that come up for people around, rage and resentment and self-pity and despair, and expressing that all in these different ways that you're describing physically through, through the body and through the types.
Yes. Yeah, so ultimately your creator type is a guide to show you how you, in particular, move from thought to action.
Mm-hmm. And where you are in danger of getting off track.
Absolutely. And that's the self-mastery part. If you can master yourself in business, if you can master your creative style, you can grow a business with so much ease because you are operating by your natural way. And nature responds to that. Like nature is here to help us. When we operate by a natural way, nature goes, okay, let's do this. You're cooperating with me. You're not fighting me anymore. Our bodies are nature. So that's the simplicity of it.
That's beautiful. So how are we doing with time, Natalie? What's our...
We should wrap up, I think, unless anyone has questions or you have any final questions, Toma.
Well, I think you've pretty much touched on the things I was going to ask you. The thing that is so important, regardless of where these come from and why, what it's based on and why the body is so central to our expression, our creation, is how does knowing my creator type going to help me be more effective, be more happy, be more fulfilled, achieve my goals, and do so in a way that is most, beneficial and enjoyable to me, most joyful, most fulfilling. All those things. That's what everybody wants. I want to have it all. I want to be able to achieve my expression, give my soul gifts to the world, impact the world in the way that I want. But I don't want to do it at the sacrifice of my health or my happiness or my life, really. So that's what, the question is. How is it, what's the most central thing? And you've made a very good case that this is really, powerfully important. If we can know what our natural style is and we know what to watch out for, that our tendency of detriment is.
Yes.
And
yes, sorry, Toma.
No, but just that we need to be able to keep monitoring ourselves, really, really implant in our consciousness those red flags. Like, why did I have that angry outburst? Why am I feeling so frustrated? Why am I feeling so sluggish? Why am I feeling so scattered? Whatever those manifestations are, like have that be a red flag and say, okay, I got to pull back and see what's happening. What am I doing? Where did I go off course? How can I get back into center, into alignment?
Where am I being destructive instead of productive?
And what can I do about it? How do I change course?
How do I change course? Exactly. Yes. So I think I have an analogy to, I guess, leave everyone with. And and it's the good old farmer with the tree, growing his crop. And, the farmer has various nutrients that feeds a business tree. So these natural cycles and the theme of each month, each cycle, that's like 12 nutrients of the year that you feed your business tree. And if you miss a nutrient, then the tree is going to be lacking in some way. So having these 12 functions is a way of feeding your business all the nutrients it needs to grow by the elements of nature: earth, air, fire, water. And then, as a farmer, you are the custodian. You must master yourself so that you are able to give your business tree the nutrients it needs. You must master your way of creating so you can be in harmony with that tree that is growing in front of you. So
it's beautiful. So you've just integrated the whole natural cycles of the year with the creator types.
Yes.
Thank you.
I hope so. Well, all right, looks like there's no more comments. Be quick if you do have a question or comment to make, but otherwise, Tomar, you've been amazing at asking all these pertinent questions today. Thank you for teasing it out of me.
You've been beyond amazing in answering. I learned so much more just from this conversation. Yeah, really. And I have a bunch more questions, but I'm going to save them for another time.
Part 2.
Well, I think maybe we might want to do a part 2 because I know we've just really skimmed the surface. Amazing as the system is, there's a lot more.
Yes, that's right. And some of you already know your creator type. If you are curious, I will post the link to an article that explains the 12 creator types. And you might be able to get a sense of which type describes you most. Some of you have already done this. You haven't been officially typed yet. If you do want to be officially profiled, it means you have to send me photos of your body. Just wearing, swimsuit, tight clothing, yoga pants, whatever, so I can see the shape and structure of your body. And then we actually do a face-to-face on Zoom and go through your profile. So if you do want to be officially profiled, we can do that too. I'll post that link as well. And other than that, Tomar, our book angel, thank you so much. If you want to know more about Tomar's work, she is listed in the business directory and you can find her website and contact details there. She's also on Facebook as Tomar Levine if you want to send her a friend request. She is an absolute gem and an asset to anyone who is creating a body of work, signature work that needs a high-level view of how to sort through all that content, all that goodness.
Gain clarity out of the chaos.
That's right, clarity in the chaos. That's your tagline. Okay, all right. Thank you, Tomar, and thank you everyone for joining today. Thanks for your questions, and I'll be answering any further questions if you want to list them in the chat.
Bye for now. Bye, everybody.